Asmad Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmad Paramagurubhyo Namaha, Asmad Sarvagurubhyo Namaha. So we're continuing on with our discussions about Hari Bhakti Vilas. We're going through Hari Bhakti Vilas, and so far we've gone through Hari Bhakti Vilas, first Vilas, second Vilas, and third Vilas, which are basically about number one, finding a guru, number two, getting initiated, number three, we're starting to do the daily rituals, the Arnikam of the Gaudiya Vaishnava devotee, getting up in the morning, doing ablutions, taking a bath, doing Sandhya Vandanam, either the Vedic Sandhya Vandanam or the Tantric or Pancharatric Sandhya Vandanam with the Pancharatric mantras. And now we come to the fourth Vilas. So let's have a look at the fourth Vilas and start discussing it. Okay, so here we have in the beginning of the fourth Vilas, and normally what Gopal Bhatta Goswami will do is the first text of each Vilas will be some appreciation or prayer to Lord Chaitanya for his mercy, and also each verse will contain a hint about what the meaning of what the subject matter of this chapter is going to be. So text 1, by bathing only once in the most sacred holy place in the form of chanting the holy name of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, even the most impure person becomes counted as one of the exalted personalities and becomes qualified to teach religious principles. So, again, we've got a little bit of a theme here about bathing, even though we just dealt with bathing, but we're talking about he's talking about here bathing by chanting the holy name. And if you'll remember, Manasika bath, or mentally thinking about the Lord or chanting his holy name, invokes the remembrance of the Lord within the mind. This is considered to be the best form of bath. So that was also mentioned in the previous Vilas and third Vilas. Okay, so continuing on with text 2. After completing one's bath and offering oblations, in this sense, oblations probably means is talking about offering the different tarpanas. We discussed a little bit about offering the Deva, Rishi, and Pitri tarpanas, offering water to the different personalities who we owe debts to. When we're born, we have certain debts to the Rishis, certain debts to the Pitris, the forefathers, the seers, the forefathers, and the Devatas, who provide many things for us, including the air that we breathe and the earth that we stand on. So after completing one's bath and offering oblations, one should first offer obeisances to his worshipable Lord. So this is interesting. So it says here, first offer obeisances to your worshipable Lord, meaning your Istadevata, your preferred form of Krishna. If you have or it could be Lord Krishna, or it could be another form of the Supreme Lord, like Narasimha or Rama, different avatars. Okay, so first offer obeisances to one's worshipable Lord, and then to the spiritual master, to the Guru, and other elderly persons. So it says here Jestam. Jestam means other elderly persons. Gurun. Guru, Guru, Guravaha, Gurum, Guru, Gurun. Okay, so the word here, Gurun, is plural. Okay, so it means not just your spiritual master, but the whole Guru Parampara. Now, Sri Vaishnavas call this Guru Parampara Anusandanam. Guru Parampara Anusandanam means sitting and meditating upon the whole Guru Parampara. And there's two ways to offer respects to the Guru Parampara. We know the pranam mantras of the Guru, and the pranam mantras of his Guru, and the pranam mantras of all the Gurus in our lineage. So those can be chanted as prayers, meditating upon each one of them. And normally it's done when we offer obeisances to or respects or prayers to the Guru Parampara. We do it starting with our Guru and working back to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, all the way. So that can be done by chanting of different verses, which are called pranam mantras, offering our obeisances to each guru in the lineage. It can also be done by simply reciting their name or the name of the person in the dative case, followed by namaha. And you can start with, so for instance, you could say Veda Vyasaya Namaha, or you could say Brahmane Namaha, Veda Vyasaya Namaha, like this. If you wanted to say Madhvacharyaya Namaha or Sri Krishna Chaitanyaya Namaha, these are two different ways of mentioning or praying to the Guru Parampara. So one is called Vakya Parampara, and one is called Sloka Parampara. Sloka Parampara means the pranamantras, the full verses that usually describe the attributes of a particular acharya. And the Vakya Parampara is just giving a statement of the person's name. So Sri Krishna, Gopala Goswami Namaha and Sri Krishna Chaitanya Namaha, like that. Okay, so then continuing on with text 3.
Me?
Just sorry, I didn't finish this verse actually. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
This order would be unusual to say for ISKCON members, like to offer first to the obeisance to the Lord and then to gurus.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a general,
Is it like this in Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya that they do this order of sequence?
Well, when we get up in the morning, the first thing we do is we chant the name of the Lord, so that it's a way of praising the Lord. The first thing you say is not Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. The first thing you say is Hari 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 Hari. Or if you're Gaudiya Vaishnava, say Hare Krishna or Krishna 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 or something like this. There's one interesting small pamphlet that I have. I think it was printed by Vishwabha Goswami, the father of Padmanabha Goswami of Radharaman, and it describes the Anikam for his disciples. And in the very beginning, waking up in the morning, it's like Gora 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 Hey Krishna 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 Hey, like that. This is like the first thing that they chant. So in that sense, people are chanting the name of God first, and then the spiritual master. But normally we understand that we should approach God through the spiritual master. So either way, I don't think it's wrong to wake up in the morning and immediately, chant the name of God. This particular, we have to understand that this verse here, text number 2, we don't know when exactly in the sequence. Like I said, Hari Bhakti Vilasa is not always in sequence. So we shouldn't look at this one verse and say, oh, this is definitely a sequence that maybe after we finish our Sandhya Vandana, then we should sit down and we should, because the last Vilas, the last 3 ended with Sandhya Vandana. It ended with Vedic Sandhya, then Tantric Sandhya. That's where it ended. So, and then there were some more considerations about bathing even after Sandhya Vandana. There was some more slokas, so that was completely out of order. The last few slokas about. Then we come to this. So then it seems to be saying, it's saying here in this sloka, it's saying after the bath and offering oblations, right? Now, what does it mean exactly? It says atah swagriham, so that means in one's house, right? Come to the house. So if you've already described going out and bathing outside the house, you've gone to a river and you think. So after that's finished, now you're going to do down by the river or down by the tank, you're probably going to do your Sandhya Vandanam. And you're going to do your Tarpana, Rishi Pitri Devata Tarpana. And so that's all finished like that. Before you do any of these things, there might be a prayer to the Guru. There might be, or included in that, in that system. So exactly a prayoga that satisfies everybody as to who should be offered obeisances first. But here, see, when we see when we see the word gurun, we understand that there's a meditation on the whole lineage because it's in plural. It's not just offering obeisances to one guru. The whole lineage. The whole lineage will also include the Lord. Ultimately, will include the Lord because the Lord starts each lineage. So, one should adao. The word adao means first. You should start off by doing. I mean, we could look in the if there's anything in the commentary, but I doubt. So, the rest of this sloka number 2 of the 4th chapter talks about offering obeisances to the spiritual masters of the lineage, and then other elderly persons, jeshtam, right? So your father, your mother, elderly relatives, because in those days in the house, people were living in a joint family system. I guess if they're not present, you could offer your respects to them. There could be pictures of them around or whatever. Except those who may be out collecting flowers, wood for sacrifice, kusha grass, or water, and thus are away from home. Normally, you don't. Nowadays, we have plumbing, so you don't have to go outside the house to get water. But if you wanted to do it very authentically, you would go and you would pull water from a well, or you would go and get water from a river or a pond in order to bathe the deity. Because water from a tap is not going to be pure to worship the deity. So, but today, most people are just getting water from a source within the house. So they don't have to go out to get water. They might have to go out to get kusha grass or wood for sacrifice or flowers. This is also brings us back to the 5 parts of the day, 5 different activities that happen in the day. Abhigamanam, upadanam, ija, swadhyaya, and yoga. So abhigamanam means we're getting ourselves together by getting up, doing oblations, taking baths, doing sandhyavandanam. That's all part of abhigamanam. And then upadana means collecting the samagris, collecting the ingredients for doing the worship of the Lord. So that includes the wood for sacrifice, the kusha grass, the water, the flowers. Okay, so tulsi leaves, whatever. So some people may be designated in the household to go and do those things. Maybe you're not the one doing those things. So you're offering obeisances to those people. In the purport by Sanatana Goswami, the commentary, he just mentions a verse from Naradiya Purana, Brihad Naradiya Purana, which talks about that, about the fact that there might be other people out collecting those things. So it's the exact sequence of offering obeisances to the Lord and to the Guru Parampara isn't given. Normally at this point, after bath and after Sandhyavandanam, Guru Parampara Anusandhanam would already have been done by many people, because many people, what they do is immediately after they put the Urdhva Pundram, the tilak, so they do the ablutions and then bath, and then they immediately put on Urdhva Pundram, they put on tilak, and after putting on Urdhva Pundram, then we sit down and first of all think about the Guru Parampara by chanting the Bhakti Parampara or Sloka Parampara or both. So normally it's an interesting point that here he says to offer obeisances to the worship of the Lord first. Okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with offering a prayer to the Lord at this point, but normally, of course, people start off by offering prayers to the Guru Parampara. So we can't say it's just one sloka, and if we look at a prayoga, an actual procedure for Anikam, for Vaishnava daily life, we might see a prayer to the Lord here before the Guru Parampara meditation, or we might not. I haven't normally seen that. So yeah, it's an interesting point. It's I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but at the same time, if you want to strictly go by what most of the Anikams do, is at this point they're you have to remember that you've already been worshipping the Lord in Sandhyavandana a lot. So that then again, before Sandhyavandana, people may, as I said, the way Sri Vaishnavas do it normally is after bath, after tilak, the very first thing is Guru Parampara Anusandhana. So then even before Sandhyavandana. So here, that wasn't mentioned. Right? We in third Vilasa, we discussed about doing Vaidika Sandhya and doing Tantrika Sandhya. Now, in the Tantrika Sandhya, for instance, people in ISKCON or in the Gaudiya Math, they have mantras to the Guru. So in the Tantrika Sandhya, they're already worshipping the Guru. But then again, they've done the Vaidika Sandhya first. Now, before the Vaidika Sandhya, if you can take this to extremes, like I said, when we first wake up in the morning, we chant Hari, Hari, Hari. We chant Krishna, 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 or Gora, Gora, Gora. We chant the name of the Lord. So somebody who wants to be very strict about this idea of only worshipping the Guru first before worshipping the Lord, or offering prayers to the Guru first before the Lord, when he wakes up in the morning, the first thing he has to do is do Guru Parampara Anusandhana. He has to worship the acharyas. At a certain point, if you're going to worship the Lord, if you're going to worship the Guru before you do every single act, every single ritual, then you're basically doubling the ritualism for the day. So the practical system is, yes, worship the Guru first, but get up, do everything you have to do before you take bath, put tilak, then do Guru Parampara Anusandhanam, remember the Guru, worship the Guru for the rest of the day. It's enough for the rest of the day until the next day. That's the normal situation with in most sampradayas. Now, if somebody says to you, if your Guru says to you, every time you worship the Lord, before you worship the Lord, you have to worship the Guru, you have to pray to the Guru, or you have to offer respects to the Guru, beg permission from the Guru. Okay, that's up to a specific acharya to tell his disciples to do like that. But we don't normally see it. We don't normally see it. We see a system of sitting down and meditating on the Guru Parampara, sure. But before that, when we wake up, we've already chanted the name of the Lord. We've already done that. Then after that, we're doing Sandhyavandanam, in which case we're worshipping Lord Narayana within the sun, Savitri. And then we're doing Pancharatrik Gayatri, Pancharatrik Sandhyavandanam, where we have mantras to the Guru and to Lord Chaitanya and to Krishna. And so then, again, we've mentioned so many people before, the Lord and the Gurus and everything before. And again, it says, after you finish that, you go home. See, this is what it's saying, basically. What is the difference here between the fourth Vilasa? The fourth Vilasa is, we finished taking bath, we finished doing Sandhyavandanam down at the bank of the river, or at the well, or at the tank, and we've come home. We come home. Maybe we even picked some tulsi and some flowers and things when we're on our way home to do our worship. But we come home, and the first thing we should do at home, according to text 2, is that we should offer obeisances to the Lord, right? Now that could mean that we come home and we come into our deity room, or we come near our altar and we offer obeisances. That's what it could mean. Then to the spiritual master, then if we're living with the spiritual master, or just offer to the spiritual master, other elderly people in the household, except for those who are outside the house and who are collecting water and grass. So without context, this verse is being given. It's not said that this verse comes from any scripture. So then we have to assume, if it's not mentioned that it comes from any scripture, it's just Gopal Bhatta Goswami writing something. And without context, maybe if we continue on, maybe we'll understand some context, but otherwise without anything in the commentary or without context, we can't really say exactly the sequence. Okay, so that the sequence is up to interpretation. So, all right. So anyway, continuing on, text 3. Maybe we'll understand a little bit more if we continue on. So now he's giving a quotation from Narasimha Purana, and he says, after bathing, one should offer respects to the Supreme Lord. Okay. So now remember, we've done some more things in the third Vilasa. We've done Vedic Sandhyavandana and Pancharatric Sandhyavandana after bathing. So again, he's going back to bathing, and this is clear if we look at the very first text again of the fourth Vilasa, which mentions bathing. So as soon as I read the first verse, I know there's still going to be some more stuff about bathing, because he's mentioned bathing in the first text, as I said. So it gives us a hint of the subject matter of the Vilasa. Okay, so anyway, after bathing, one should offer his respects to the Supreme Lord, thinking that he is situated in water before returning home. Right. So then one should worship Sri Vishnu by chanting the Purusha Shukta mantra. Okay. So exactly the procedure, maybe he's going to use the Purusha Shukta mantra for worshipping some salagram in his house. That's fine. Like that. So an exact procedure isn't mentioned here. So it may be that we can take this verse and we can say, okay, if we want to follow this literally, after we take bath in the river or the tank or by the well, then we think of the Lord is in the water. We meditate upon the Lord in water, right? Where we can think of the Lord laying down in the ocean on Adishesha. And then, or we can think of Lord Krishna, in his pastime of jumping in the Yamuna and playing with the gopis, or jumping in the Yamuna and killing Kaliya Naga or something like that, right? And then we should worship Lord Vishnu by chanting Purusha Shukta mantra. So whether this is a mental worship of Krishna with Purusha Shukta, or whether it's an actual external worship after we return home, it's not clear here. Okay, so again, not exactly. Don't expect Hari Bhakti Vilas to be step by step. It's not a cookbook. It's not a prayoga. It's not a procedure. It sometimes jumps around, and we have to decide from these pramanas, from these proofs in these different scriptures, how to make a system of going step by step. So continuing on. So texts 4 and 5 are going to be about cleaning the temple of the Lord. Now, whether that's the temple of the Lord or whether that's the deity room at home or the altar at home, it mentions that this comes next. The next thing that we do is we have to clean the temple or clean the altar. So after performing Achamana, so what does it say here? Does it say Achamana here? Yeah, Achamanadikam, beginning with Achamana, Vidaya, the procedure of beginning with Achamana, right? After performing Achamana and other duties, he should clean the Lord's temple room. Mandira Marjayed Vishnor. Okay. Thereafter, while meditating upon the deity, the devotee should surrender himself to the Lord while chanting the glories of his holy names and transcendental qualities. Right? Krishnam Pashyan Kirtayamscha Dasye. Yes, okay. That's pretty clear. And then it says, afterwards, one should mix cow dung, pure clay, so pure earth with cow dung, and water, and smear it on the floor of the temple. This is a way of cleaning the floor. And when you mix cow dung with the mud and you smear it and it dries, it makes it. It's a type of way of cleaning. The other thing you can do is you can mix it and you can smear it and then you can wash it off. So sometimes people have a cow dung floor and then they add a layer of cow dung, and they add a layer of cow dung and earth, and they make it fresh. Or sometimes they will take even a marble floor or a stone floor, and they'll wash it with just as we use pure clay to wash ourselves in the river. So we mix that with cow dung and some water, and it's an antiseptic, and we use it to clean the temple room floor, and then we wash that off. So either way, when this is finished, one should sprinkle water mixed with cow dung. So some cow dung in the water to give it an antiseptic quality. Sprinkle it on the temple room floor, the courtyard. Right. So an actual temple should have a garbhagriha, should have a deity room. Then sometimes it's got what we call Ardha Mandapa, or a you could call it a Kirtan Mandapa, a place where the persons who are watching the ritual worship of the deity going on. And then there might also be a courtyard, which is open, in which the Dwajastamba, the temple flagpole, or the tulsi tree is kept. So there might be, this is a temple courtyard. So if we go to see any of the temples in Vrindavan or any temple in India, we'll see that sometimes temples are like this. They have these different parts to them. So continuing on with text 6, the Srimad Bhagavatam gives a statement about this in the story of Maharaj Ambarish, right? And it says, Maharaj Ambarish always engaged his mind in meditating upon the lotus feet of Krishna, his words in describing the glories of the Lord, his hands in cleaning the Lord's temple, and his ears in hearing the words spoken about Krishna, or by Krishna, right? Words spoken by Krishna means like the Bhagavad Gita. About Krishna means like the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so continuing on, text 7, in conversation between the Lord and Uddhava, found in the 11th canto, 11:39, it's stated, one should consider oneself to be a humble servant without duplicity, and thus should help to clean the temple, which is my home. So Krishna is saying the temple is his home, and in actual fact, in some sampradayas like the Vallabha Sampradaya and the Gaudiya Sampradaya, they don't really consider the temple to be a temple, but they consider it to be a home. In Gujarat, they'll call it a haveli. In Vallabha Sampradaya, it's a house. Krishna lives in a house, right? They don't think of Krishna as being the majestic God like Lord Narayana. They think of Krishna as being, a cowherd boy who lives in Vrindavan, and therefore he lives in the house of Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yasoda. So it's a house. They consider it to be a palatial house, but a house, not necessarily a palace or a royal building. So that is Krishna's home. First, one should sweep and dust thoroughly. Then one should further cleanse with water and cow dung. So especially in India, many places are very dusty. So here it said that you should first sweep and dust thoroughly. There are different ideas about this. For instance, many places, what they do is they sprinkle water first on the dust, and then it's easy to get it. Because if you sweep the dust, a lot of the dust goes up in the air, and it may go on deity, it may go on you. So you just took a bath. So why would you throw dust on yourself like that? So a lot of people, what they do is they throw water down first, and then clean away the dirt like that, rather than get dirt on themselves by dusting and having the dust go up into the air. There are different methods. So having dried the temple, so after further cleansing it with water and cow dung and aseptic water, one should sprinkle scented water and decorate the temple with mandalas. Okay, so on the floor, people sometimes they do these geometric patterns, which in South India are called, in Karnataka they call them rangoli, in Tamil Nadu and they call them kolam, auspicious things. And sometimes that in Bengal, sometimes that's done with rice flour. If you've got a marble floor, you can do it with rice flour paste. So you mix rice flour with some water and you stick your finger in it, and you can make these designs on the floor, and it dries. Or Sprinkling with scented water. The water can be scented with rose water, or this orange blossom water is very nice. You can get some places, which comes normally from Lebanon. And you can sprinkle that, and it makes everything smell very nice. And the mandalas, however, probably shouldn't contain any sacred symbol, like any mantras or any omkar or something like that, but just auspicious geometric patterns, nice patterns. And sometimes, though, we see people do very elaborate ones. And in fact, in Sri Rangam, when the Lord goes around the different streets in his processions, the ladies come out and they wash the street. And if it's a Rath cart coming, or if the Lord is coming on the Hamsa Vahana, on a swan carrier, then they'll do a picture of a swan. They'll do a picture of a swan if he's coming on the swan carrier. They'll do a picture of the Kalpavriksha if he's coming on a wish-fulfilling tree. If he's coming, with on Shesha or something, they'll put Shesha like that. Or if he's coming on a Rath, they'll put a cart, chariot. So sometimes they're not just geometrical patterns, but sometimes they're actually pictures of what's going to happen. Okay, and one should thus act like my servant. Okay, so this is the first service that we do in the day, is cleaning up the temple altar or the house altar. The glories. Now we're going to get a Mahatmyam. So Mahatmyam is the glories. It's going to glorify doing this activity that we just spoken about. So also from Narasimha Purana, it says, a person who cleans the temple of Lord Narasimha Dev every day becomes liberated from all sinful reactions, and then goes to happily reside in the abode of Lord Vishnu. Continuing on with text 9 and 10, from the Vishnu Dharmottara, it says, if there is no doubt that a person who cleans the temple of Sri Keshava becomes free from the influence of the modes of passion and ignorance. A king, a person will enjoy divine happiness in heaven for as many years as the particles of dust he accumulates. He accumulates? I'm not sure whether he accumulates or he cleans while cleaning the temple of the Supreme Lord. Okay. So it's nice. In Varaha Purana, it's continued on in text 11 to 14, a quotation from Varaha Purana, and it says, O Mother Earth. So obviously Lord Varaha is speaking to his consort Bhumi Devi, the goddess of the earth. And he says, O Mother Earth, a person who will enjoy blissful life in Shakadvipa for as many thousands of years as he strokes the ground with his broom while sweeping. Thereafter, he will be born as my devotee and become endowed with religiosity, purity, devotion, and freedom from offenses. After enjoying life in Shakadvip, he will first go to heaven and enjoy the association of celestial women in the Nandana Kanana garden. Thereafter, when he again attains a human birth, he will become fixed in my devotional service after giving up all types of material attachment, and then return to my transcendental abode. So here it's giving all these results from sweeping or from cleaning the temple of the Lord. Texts 15 and 16 is a Mahatmyam about smearing anulepanam, atta ulepanam, atta upalepanam. So lepana means to smear. So smearing the cow dung and water on the temple of the Lord, on the floor of the temple of the Lord. Again, Lord Varaha addressing the earth says, the word gomayam is mentioned here. Gomayam means cow dung. One should smear cow dung on the floor of my temple. By doing so, He will reside with me as my devotee for as many thousands of years as he takes his strides while smearing the cow dung inside the temple and on the ground surrounding it. While smearing cow dung in my temple, as many steps one takes, he will enjoy life in heaven for that many thousands of years. And now continuing on, verse 17 and 18. Thereafter, when one finishes his period of enjoying life in heaven, he will be born as a pious king in Shalmali Dvipa, another place, some other island. He will be my sincere devotee, and he will be very expert in the understanding of all scriptures. While seeing a devotee's strong inclination for smearing my temple with cow dung, I become very satisfied. Continuing on to text 19, it says, the cow whose dung is used to smear the floor of the temple of the Supreme Lord, even once, certainly becomes liberated after giving up her cow body. Good. So not only do you get benefited by using the cow dung, but the cow also gets benefited. Continuing with
Perhaps,
text 20 to
perhaps
22.
we could make parallel with the milk, cow giving milk. If this is stated for cow dung, then certainly this could apply also for cow giving milk.
Yeah, the cow giving milk, like if the cow's, after the cow dies, if the cow's, body is, if its leather is made into mridungas, there's many things. If you give your body in the service of the Lord in some way, either by producing milk or producing cow dung, producing cow urine, naturally, you're going to be benefited from that. Yeah, very good point. So here's a prayer coming up here. It says, "O Mother Earth, O fortunate one, now hear from me about the great piety one achieves by pouring water while smearing cow dung and cleaning my temple. O beautiful one, as many drops of water as one pours onto the floor while cleaning the temple, he will enjoy life for that many thousands of years in the heavenly planets. O Vasundare is the name of Bhumi Devi, the goddess of the earth. Such a person becomes worshipped in Kronchadweep for as many thousands of years as the drops of water he pours onto the floor to clean my temple." Now, we can read about these different places, Kronchadweep and Shalmaki. What is it called? What was the other one called? Shalmali Dweep. There's all these different Puranic names of places. We can read about them somewhere else. It's not that important, but if somebody wants to get into Puranic cosmology, they can go and they can look up these different places and try to understand where these places are. But in general, the Mahatmya is just telling us that that you'll gain not only liberation and go to the supreme destination of the Lord, his eternal abode, but you can also get some wonderful heavenly delights also. Okay, so continuing on with text 23. Such a devotee, after enjoying life in Kronchadweep, devotes himself to a life of piety, gives up all material attachment, and ultimately turns to my supreme abode. Texts 24 and 25 come from Vishnu Dharmotara, and it's also stated there, by regularly smearing the floor of the temple of Sri Vishnu with cow dung, one can easily transfer himself to the most auspicious planets within the universe. Simply by smearing cow dung over the temple floor, even an area of 1 square foot. Now, obviously, in the Sanskrit, it probably doesn't say 1 square foot, but anyway, it means hasta pramanam. A hasta is usually 18 inches, right? So half a meter square. And the hasta is between the middle finger and the elbow, normally. One hand. Sometimes when we're buying cloth or buying dhotis or angavastras, they measure it out in hands or in lengths, different things. So, okay. By regularly smearing the floor of the temple of Sri Vishnu with cow dung, one can easily transfer transfer himself to the most auspicious planets within the universe simply by smearing cow dung over the temple floor, even the area of 1 square hasta or 1 square foot. One becomes a king and then goes to heaven, where he enjoys life with hundreds of celestial women. Okay. Text 26 is also from Nrsimha Purana. Nrsimha Purana is an Upa Purana. It's not one of the 18 main Puranas, but it's also quoted here. One who smears the Lord's temple with cow dung, clay, and water obtains the result of following the vow of Chandrayaan and is transferred to the supreme abode of the Lord after death. Okay, so Chandrayaan is a fasting method. Chandrayaan, Chandra means the moon, and Ayana means following the moon. So in the Chandrayaan method of fasting, you start on the Purnima, which is the full moon, and you take 15 mouthfuls or 15 handfuls of food, and you eat those. The next day, which is the first day of the waning fortnight after Purnima, you take only 14. You take one less. And then the next day on the Dvitiya, right, the second day of the waning fortnight, you take 13. And you keep going down and down and down in the amount of food that you take each day until you get to Amavasya, which is the no moon day, which you completely fast on. Then in the second half of the month, right, that is if you start the month with if you end the month with Purnima, and you don't end the month with Amavasya. I think Gaudiya Vaishnavas have an Amanta and not Purnamanta. But anyhow, so if the first, normally in normal situation, people count the waning part of the moon as being the first part of the month. Okay, so the waning fortnight. So then when after Amavasya, you again start to eat food. So you again go up and eat. On the first day after Amavasya, the Pratama after Amavasya, you eat 1 handful of food or 1 mouthful of food. And then you go 2, 3, 4, 5 until you come up to Purnima again, the full moon, when you eat 15 handfuls. And then that's considered to be Chandrayaan fasting. So there are some sins there's some rules, and if you break those rules, it's considered sins. And this Chandrayaan fasting is considered a prayaschitta for removing those sins. And so what it's saying here is that you get the same result by smearing cow dung, clay, and water as obtained by doing that type of fasting, which is a very difficult type of fasting. But I knew when I lived in New Zealand at the temple in New Zealand, we had an Indian grocer who used to bring things for the temple, vegetables for the deities. And he used to do this quite often. He'd do the Chandrayaan fast. It's commonly done, maybe not so much anymore, but people know about it. And so that's just explaining about what Chandrayaan fasting is. And continuing on in text 27, while chastising his messengers, the Yamadutas, Yamaraj said, why did Yamaraj chastise his messengers, the Yamadutas? He chastised them for trying to take possession of the soul of a person called Ajamila. In the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam, there's a story of Ajamila. And Ajamila, he was a devotee when he was younger, but then later on he forgot about being a devotee. But at the time of death, he yelled out for his son to come and be with him. And his son, he named his son Narayana. So when he yelled out Narayana, the messengers of Lord Vishnu, the Vishnu Dutas, came to take him to Vaikuntha. But the Yamadutas, the messengers of Yamaraj, thought that they should take him because he was actually a sinful person. And so when they got back to the court of Yamaraj, Yamaraj talked to his messengers and chastised them, and he told them different things. And here's one of the things which he told them. So, do not bring to me for punishment those who clean the temple of the Supreme Lord and then smear it with cow dung. Also, do not bring to me the forefathers of their mothers, fathers, and wife's family. Right. So what he's saying is, not only do not only do the people who actually do this service for the Lord of cleaning the temple with cow dung and water, right? Not only do they not come before Yamaraj, but neither do the ancestors of of their mother, father, or wife's family. So continuing on with text 28 and 29. The glories of sprinkling water on the floor of the temple, of the Lord's temple. In the Vishnu Dharmottara, it's mentioned, there is no doubt that one who sprinkles water within the temple of the Supreme Lord becomes relieved of all miseries. A person who washes the courtyard of the temple becomes delivered from all sinful reactions, and at the end of his life, he attains the abode of Varuna. Varuna Loka. Okay. All right. So I guess if you want to go to Varuna Loka. Okay. Then continuing on with text 30, it says, a devotee should enhance the beauty of the temple of Srihari by drawing on the floor auspicious symbols, such as the lotus and swastika, using powders of different colors. So you can also do this with different colors. In Bengal, they tend to usually use just plain white rice flour, and they mix it with water and paste, and they make paste, and they make these colors. What you do is you mix the rice flour with water, and then you can either take a cloth or your finger, and you can use it, or you can even drip it around and make these patterns. So here they specifically mentioned Sarvato Bhadra Padma. Sarvato Bhadra is a type of mandala with like a lotus in it, like that. So we can look at a Sarvato Bhadra mandala sometimes. There's several different types of Sarvato Bhadra mandalas, but anyway, and it specifically says here, swastika. We shouldn't, now when we hear the word swastika, we immediately think of a particular symbol, right? But it's not necessarily that symbol, but any auspicious symbol, right? Not necessarily the one that we know as a swastika. Because what does swastika mean? Swasti means auspicious, kara means symbol. So any symbol which is auspicious, even a lotus flower is a swastika, right? There's many things which are swastika, not just the one that we associate with Ganesh or associate with the wheel of samsara, which is, it's sort of the one that looks like a cross with bent arms on it, either going in clockwise or anti-clockwise fashion. So okay, so that's giving some more details about the mandalas and the patterns that you can use when decorating the floor. Okay, and it's very common also in South India, at least. Housewives will clean the temple room or the puja room at home, and they'll make some small, in front of the deity or on the altar, they'll make some small patterns with rice flour, and it can be sometimes colored, sometimes just white, and they'll even write mantras of the deity on the altar, and they'll do it all every day. They'll do these things. In South India, especially in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, even in Andhra Pradesh, people do this in front of their houses. When you go out the front door of the house, you have to wash the front of the house with water and cow dung, and then you have to put down these mandalas, or these special, what they call kolam or rangoli patterns, auspicious patterns. So continuing on from the Narasimha Purana again, text 31, one should cheerfully decorate the temple of Lord Vishnu by drawing lotus flowers and other auspicious symbols with colorful powders. One should increase the beauty of the courtyard, boundary walls, and the foundation of the temple by sweeping the floor, wiping it, and smearing cow dung. So, and if you, there are patterns that you can get. There's actually little rolling machines and imprint things that you can fill with this rice powder, and you can make different symbols if you're not expert at drawing. And there's ways to do that. Some people nowadays, what they do is they get these stickers, and they put the sticker down, they clean everything, and they put the sticker down, and then it's permanently there. So there's many different ways of doing it, but the traditional way is to do it every day after cleaning, using the rice powder. And some people are very expert at doing it. There are competitions for doing the best ones in South India, and also they have all these gadgets that you can buy for the housewife to make it easier for her to make all these sort of patterns. So continuing on, text 32 is going to give another Mahatmyam, and this Mahatmyam is going to be about the mandala which is made. So this particular mandala that was mentioned in the previous verse, I believe, it says, no, 2 verses back, in verse 30, Sarvatobhadra mandala involves a lotus and involves different other things. In fact, the Sarvatobhadra mandala can be drawn on the floor, but it can be also worshipped, right? And the Lord and different entities can be invoked upon it. You can place a sacred pot on it, and you can invoke the Lord into the pot and worship the Lord. It's a very auspicious symbolism that the Lord can sit on. So one should cheerfully decorate the Lord's the temple of Lord Vishnu by drawing lotus flowers and other auspicious symbols. Yeah, we did that. Okay, so continuing on, text 32. In the section on Kartika Vrata, or the vows taken in the month of Kartik, which is October, November, let's say. In the Skanda Purana, from the Skanda Purana, there's a mention here that the sinful reactions accumulated by having sexual intercourse with a prohibited woman and by eating abominable food, right, can be nullified by decorating the temple of Srihari. So this idea of decorating the temple, this is here, Harehi Griham, the house of Lord Hari, right? And but it will get rid of the sins, or it's prayaschitta or atonement for the sins of having intercourse with a prohibited woman, right? There might be some there are some reasons why sexual intercourse with a particular woman might be prohibited, and there are many rules about that in the scriptures. So so in the Smriti Shastras, in the Varnashram system, and also eating abominable food according to your sampradaya, according to your sect, there'll be certain prohibited foods and things like that. Some of course are very. We dealt with some of them in the section in Vilasa 2 about initiation. There were 104 rules that the initiate had to vow to follow, and some of them included not eating the meat of tortoise or the meat of. There were other animals that were mentioned, and some other abominable foods, and there might be some other foods coming up in further sections of Hari Bhakti Vilasa. So a lot of rules about sex, a lot of rules about food, okay, and so therefore by decorating the temple of Hari, one can become free from all the sinful reactions from breaking all of those rules. Okay, so continuing on, text 33 and 34. If one decorates the temple of Sri Keshava with clay and other materials, even once, becomes eligible to live in the abodes of the demigods for 100 kalpas. And a kalpa, of course, is a cycle of yugas, of 4 yugas, like that. One who draws a swastika, again, an auspicious symbol, not necessarily the one that we associate with samsara or even, with Ganesha sometimes. In front of the Shalagram Shila, one who draws a swastika in front of the Shalagram Shila, especially in the month of Kartik, purifies 7 generations of his family. 7 generations. Okay. So we're not quite sure whether that means 7 generations in the past or 7 generations in the future. Sometimes it's very specific and it says 7 generations in the past and future. So anyway, could be both. Could be one or the other or both. Text 35 and 36, also talking about the mandala. A woman who daily draws a mandala in front of Sri Keshava will not become a widow during her next 7 births. Hopefully, if she becomes a devotee, she doesn't have to take 7 births. But anyway, in case she does take 7 births, as a woman, she will not become a widow. Inauspicious to become a widow, and therefore, by drawing a mandala, she gets that benediction. A lady who draws mandalas with cow dung and other substances in front of Lord Keshava will never be separated from her husband, children, or wealth. Okay, these are all Puranic Mahatmyams or Palashrutis which give the glorifying the act of cleaning the temple and putting down a mandala either in cow dung or in some other substance, either in white or in different colors, in front of the Lord. So, text 37, one who decorates the courtyard of the Lord's temple with colorful drawings and swastikas enjoys a happy life anywhere within the three worlds. That's nice. Text 38 from the Naradiya Purana, one who smears the floor of the temple of Lord Hari with clay, cow dung, and colorful metallic powders. I don't know where they get the word metallic from. Let's see. Not sure, but anyway, becomes qualified to enjoy flying in a celestial airplane as a demigod. Okay. Some more benedictions there. From the Hari Bhakti Sudodaya, text 39 says, one should smear the temple of Srihari with cow dung and decorate it with colorful drawings. One who does that becomes happy in all conditions of life and a resident of Vishnu Loka joyfully. The residents of Vishnu Loka joyfully come and greet him after death. So that's nice. The residents of Vishnu Loka, obviously the Vishnu Dutas, are going to come and they're going to take that person to moksha, to liberation, to Sri Vaikuntha. Okay, so text 40. What are the lakshanas, or what are can we describe what is a swastika? Swastika lakshana. Okay, so we've talked above in many sutra slokas above. We've talked about drawing auspicious symbols. So what are those auspicious symbols? Let's find out. So from the agamas, we can find out what the auspicious symbols are. One should draw a square, divide it into 16 small parts, and then color them white, yellow, red, and black powder to make it look like a swastika. So there's nothing really in the purport by Sanatana Goswami about actually what this symbol that's being made here, or what this type of mandala, swastika mandala is what exactly how exactly it's made. He's explaining that it's done with 16 squares, right? So 4 by 4. We're assuming it's 4 squares by 4 squares makes 16. And then the squares are filled with these different powders in some pattern. So we could look up. We have books on different mandalas and things. We could see if there's a Sarvatobhadra mandala or some type of mandala that fits this description. Otherwise, it's a bit of a mystery because we don't have an elaboration except for the colors in the commentary by Sanatana Goswami. So continuing on from the Pancharatra in texts 41 and 42, it mentions one should collect powder in 5 different colors. For white, one should use rice powder or barley powder. Okay, so these are all natural colors that you use. Okay, so today people tend to use dyes, artificial dyes and things like that. But here it's mentioned in Hari Bhakti Vilasa to use the colors of specific things which are natural. And in fact, when you make different colored mandalas, you can use natural ingredients that are of different colors, including even up to very expensive ones made of colored precious stones. Colored precious stones like rubies, sapphires, diamonds, emeralds, like that. So it's possible to make mandalas, colored designs, out of different auspicious natural items, even gems. So for white, one uses rice powder or barley powder. For red, one uses kumkum, vermilion, or saffron. For yellow, one should use haritala or turmeric, right? For black, one can make a powder of burnt barley. So you get some barley and burn it, and then you've got black. And for green, one can use a combination of burnt barley and turmeric. I've never actually tried that. Maybe we should try that sometime, get some some barley and burn it and mix it with turmeric and see if somehow or other that makes a type of green. So here is mentioning green, whereas in the previous sloka we did not see green. So we saw white, yellow, red, and black in the previous sloka. And in this sloka, we're seeing white, red, yellow, and black, the same colors, but we're also seeing green as a further one, as a fifth one. So let's continue on into text 43. Decorating the temple with a flag. Okay, so sometimes we see in North India that on the top of a temple, like in Jagannath Puri, they put a flag called a dwaja in Sanskrit. And dwaja pataka, it's also called a pataka. A flag or a banner. And in South India, they actually have a flagpole, and normally there's no flag on it in the South Indian temples, but except when there's a festival, they put a flag on it. And if it's a Shiva temple, the flag has Nandi, the carrier of Lord Shiva. And in a Vishnu temple, when they have a festival, they put a Garuda symbol on the flag. And of course, different people have different flags. Arjuna very famously had Hanuman on his flag of his chariot. So flags are a nice form of decoration. And in fact, when we make a Yagashala, there will be different flags at the different entrances in the cardinal directions, in the four main directions. There are entrances, and there'll be flags next to those entrances. So continuing the description of decorating a temple with a flag or flags. Thereafter, the devotees should decorate the temple of Lord Vishnu with nice, colorful flags and banners. Okay, festoons, different things. So now that we've said that, we're going to give the glories. We're going to explain the glories. We're going to have a mahatmyam about raising the flag. Dwajaropana. Dwajaropana means raising the flag. Which you do at the beginning of a festival in Pancharatra, and you lower it at the end of the festival. So there's two ceremonies. One is raising the flag, which is called Dwaja Aropana, and then another one, Dwaja Avaropana, putting the flag down. So it's Dwaja Aropana and Dwaja Avaropana, up and down, at the beginning and end of festivals in Pancharatra. So in the Skanda Purana, in the section about the glories of Dwarka, which is Lord Krishna's city in Gujarat on the ocean, there between Markandeya and Pradyumna, there's a conversation which states a person who devotedly places a flag on the top of the temple of Lord Vishnu becomes qualified to live in Brahmaloka and thus enjoy life in the company of Lord Brahma. So that's a great honor, I suppose. Text 45 to 47 from the Brihad Naradiya Purana, it's stated, and also from elsewhere, it's also stated that demigods headed by Brahma worship the devotee who decorates a temple of Sri Vishnu by placing a flag on top of it. What more can I say? O foremost Brahmana, the more the cloth of the flag flaps in the wind, right? The more one's sinful reactions are destroyed. So if you place a flag on a temple, and the flag is flapping in the wind, as it flaps, it's destroying your sins. Of this, there's no doubt. It does not matter whether one is very sinful or even the most sinful person. All of his sinful reactions are vanquished simply by putting a flag on top of the temple of Lord Vishnu. Very nice. Text 48. Pious persons who become pleased by seeing a nice flag established on top of the temple of Sri Krishna at once become liberated from millions of sinful reactions. Text 49, continuing on. All the wonderful glories of placing the flag on the top of the temple are described in the Brihad Naradiya Purana are to be accepted. Okay, so here it's saying that we shouldn't think that these these are exaggerations, but these are actual facts that by the Naradiya Purana says, by act of putting the flag on, it's wonderfully glorious because it gets rid of all your sins. Text 50 says, Ata Pataka Ropana Mahatmyam. So the glories of decorating the Lord's temple with a flag. So I would say aropana means actually raising the flag. But anyway, again in the Dwarka Mahatmyam of Brihad Naradiya Purana, it says, one who decorates the temple of Srihari with flags and banners certainly resides in the transcendental abode of the Lord and nowhere else, meaning he attains liberation. If you reside in Sri Vaikuntha or in Goloka Vrindavan, you've attained liberation. So in the Vishnu Dharmottara, it continues on in text 51 to 52. As a result of the decorating of the temple of Srihari with an auspicious flag, a twice-born devotee who can attain the planet of Vayuna, okay, Vayu, and reside there for many years. The more the flag flutters in the wind, the more the sinful reactions of the person who placed it there become vanquished. So now we have a Mahatmyam, or a glorification of decorating the Lord's temple with Kadali Stamba. Kadali means banana tree, right? So we have Kadali Pala when we offer fruits when we offer bananas to the deity, right? Very often in simple worship we'll say Kadali Pala Mahanavedyam Naivedyami. Kadali Pala means or Kadali Pale, two banana fruits to the deity. So Kadali Stamba means the whole trunk of the tree. And usually it's the trunk of the tree and it's just some branches with some banana leaves on it, and even possibly a bunch of bananas hanging from it. And this is most auspicious. And sometimes you see in South India that they'll put a couple of these banana trees with fruits and everything at the entrance to a temple or in the Yagshala. Very auspicious. So, and the flower gowns, Vanamala, or it says here Vandanmala, okay? Vanamala usually says. Right, anyway, so Aropana again means raising, but anyway, putting them up and decorating the Lord's temple with these banana trees, flower gowns. So again, in Vishnu Dharmottara, in the section on the glories of Dwarka, it says, O king, one who decorates the temple of Srihari with flower garlands becomes the object of adoration of the demigods and hundreds of thousands of celestial women. One who beautifies the temple of Srihari with banana trees enjoys the most delightful association of the apsaras. Apsaras are types of angels, angel-like beings who live in the heavenly planets and who sing wonderful songs for the demigods, devatas. Indeed, he commands respect from even Indra and the king of the demigods. It's nice.
It's interesting, though, that some of these benedictions just are not really desirable to a devotee, though. So I don't know. It's just interesting.
Yeah, mostly the reason why they're glorified in these ways in the Puranas is to encourage people to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
It gives some encouragement to them. It's a good thing to do because why? Because you get this benediction, or you get that benediction, or you get that. So that's why we do it. Okay, so now we're going to a different section. The next section is Ata Pita Patra Vastradi Samskaraha. Samskaraha means to purify, as we know, because there are those 16 or 40 samskaras which are performed in the life of a person, right? And samskara means a purification. So next thing we're going to do, we purify the temple room or the temple itself by first of all cleaning it, antiseptic, and then putting down nice cow dung, or clean, and maybe even cleaning that away, and putting decorations and putting up the flags and all this sort of thing. So we've cleaned the place, the temple or the puja room, and now we're going to actually clean the altar. Right, clean the different vessels that we need for doing worship, right, and we might even clean the cloth which we're going to use in the worship to either to use on the Lord, or we might have a cloth that we have to use for the bathing of the Lord to dry the Lord's body. That's called a plotavastra, right? So we need cloth for drying him, and we also need cloth for dressing him. We might even need a cloth for wrapping around him while he's taking a bath. Okay, so we want to purify all those things. We have to purify all those things, starting with the pita. The pita means the altar, right? And there's a type of thing called pita puja, which we do before we do the main worship of the Lord. We have to worship the altar. The altar represents Anantashesha, or you could say Balarama. It's another form of the Lord, but the Lord rests upon that. So the altar is considered sacred also. Not just the deity, but the altar also is considered sacred and has to be worshipped. So one should purify the metal containers, clothes, and altar of the Lord while observing the prescribed rules and regulations. Okay, so there are many rules and regulations for this, and let's see how many they give. And it's just another thing that we have to do before we actually get to the worship of the deity proper. So here we go. Tatra pitasya samskaraha. The process of purifying the altar. So text number 56 from Narasimha Purana again. One should rub the altar of Sri Krishna with a bilva leaf, a leaf from a bilva tree, and then wash it with warm water. Okay. So it does say here, bilva patrena garshayet, right? Having rubbed bilva leaves over it. So it may be that this bilva is made into a paste, or mixed with water, or it could be smeared on there and then washed off, right? Then wash it with warm water. So it specifically says here, ushna meaning warm. So the water is warm. Prakshalya means to wash. Sarva pape pramuchite, you're going to wash away your sins by doing this. The process enables one to gain freedom from all sinful reactions. Good. Okay, so continuing on, text 57. The process of purifying metal containers. So that was how to clean the altar in one verse. Now how we want to clean the metal containers which we use for the puja, because there are different what we call patras, or containers, that we use for padya, achimaniya, madhuparka, shnaniya, sudodika, all these different types of water and different ingredients for bathing. And there are other things, other metal things, that containers that we use for holding tulsi leaves and flowers and all these different things. All these things have to be cleaned. So in the Markandeya Purana, it says, one should polish copper containers with sour substances. Okay. So copper, if you use copper, if you have copper containers, right, the copper gets a patina. Copper and brass get tarnished, right? If you use them with water, or if you leave them out in a humid atmosphere, they'll get tarnished. Within a few hours or a day or so, and therefore you have to clean them and make them bright and polished, right? And the way to do that is using sour substances. So the sour substances can be either lemon juice, right, or it can be what we call imli or tamarind. Tamarind can be used to clean copper, or sometimes we use lemon juice, and if we want it to be a bit abrasive, we can mix it with gopi chandana dust powder, or some other gritty sort of powder, right? Glass and tin containers. Glass and tin. I'm not sure what the word for tin would be up here, but maybe I'm not. Anyway, glass and tin containers with ashes, or what's called basma. Up here it's called basma, ashes, right? They should be cleaned with ashes. And brass containers with ashes and water. Simply by heating, substances such as ghee become purified. Okay, so this particular verse not only mentions about containers, but it also mentions about certain dravyas, or certain ingredients, right? What we call samagris. And one of them is ghee. right? So it says about ghee that ghee can be cleaned simply by heating it. It becomes purified. Next, in text 58 from the Vayu Purana, it says, by polishing with white mustard cake or sesame cake, jewels, diamonds, coral, pearls, conch shells, and stone containers become purified. So there are stone containers, there are conch shells, and then the deity himself wears jewels, diamonds, coral, pearl, and so that can also be polished by this white mustard cake, apparently. So not exactly sure. Tila Kalkena, Siddharthakanam Kalkena. Okay, these different. Tila means sesame, and Siddhartha maybe means mustard. Okay, so text 59 to 62 from the Brahma Purana, it mentions, if containers made of metals and other materials, such as those made of gold, silver, conch shell, stone, pearl, crystals, jewels, bell metal, iron, copper, brass, tin, and lead, are not touched by grains. So if metals and other materials such as these are not touched by grains, such as cooked rice, they can be cleaned simply by rinsing in water. If these containers are contaminated due to being used by Shudras, right? So we have some containers, and if they're not touched by grains, such as cooked rice, so if you're not cooking rice in these things, or cooked rice doesn't touch them, you can simply clean them by water, right? If these, what does it say? Cooked rice. Okay, anyway, so if these containers are contaminated due to being used by Sudras, they should be purified by washing them 3 times. Washing them 3 times with ash, tamarind, and water. Okay? The ash will be a little bit abrasive, but not too much. The tamarind will be sour, and the water will wash it all off. If the pots are very contaminated, they should be properly purified before being used for serving guests or for the service of the Supreme Lord. Okay. It's a well-known fact that one should never use a contaminated pot in the service of the Supreme Lord. So normally that's the system. The system is, even in the house, we keep all of the plates and all of the utensils that we use for offering food to the Lord separate from those which we're going to use for serving or for eating. The family members, or in the temple, the same thing. Everything has to be kept separate, and the Lord has his own plates and so. So that's very common. Okay, so Manu states later on in text 63, one should purify pots made of copper, iron, bell metal, brass, tin, or lead in the proper manner with ashes, lemon juice, and water. The author, Shankar, says in text 64, one should purify copper, lead, and tin containers by rubbing them with sour juice. Bell metal and iron containers should be purified by ashes. Text 65, it's also said, pots that are contaminated due to being used by a woman who has just delivered a baby. So after a woman's given birth to a baby for 10 days, there's a period of asocha or contamination. So a lady who's just had a baby, contaminates pots that she uses. Pots contaminated due to being used by a maidservant. So even a maidservant, if a maidservant comes in contact with a pot, that maidservant is a Sudra, normally is considered in a low caste or a low class. And therefore, by touching the pot, that's contaminating the pot, so that has to be purified. Pot contaminated due to being used for containing wine. I don't know why. We don't know in what context this is actually being quoted, but anyway, there's a possibility that you might have a pot which has been contaminated because somebody put some alcohol in it or some wine. In the Smriti Shastra, it describes different types of alcohol. Okay, so there's here it actually says the word is suradi. It means sura, etc. Sura is a particular type of alcohol. There's very hard liquor, and then there's another type of thing which is usually called wine. So we could look it up in the dictionary. We could see exactly what sura is, but it says beginning with that. So it means any type of alcohol, alcoholic beverage. Is considered contaminating to a pot, so you have to clean it. If you want to use that pot again, you have to clean it. And the pot's contaminated by blood. Okay, so obviously if you get blood on a pot, for some reason you cut yourself and blood gets on the pot, they should be cleaned 21 times to make them purified. However, pots made of bell metal can be purified simply by heating them on the fire. So if you have a pot made of bell metal, you can just heat it on the fire. So probably what you would do is just put some water in the pot, put it on the fire, heat it up, and that's enough. Like that. I wouldn't take the metal pot and just heat it up without putting something in it like water. Although you could, but sometimes when you heat things that are metal with a flame or whatever like that, they tend to change color, or they have some bad reaction if you don't put something in them. So anyway, that's just a hint. So coming on to text 66, elsewhere it's also said, if a copper pot is not touched by meat of other such food, if a copper pot is not touched by meat of other such food, it can be purified by rubbing it with any sour object. So you've got a copper pot, clean it with tamarind or lemon juice or whatever it is like that, some sour thing. Even yogurt will work, right? Bit of a waste of yogurt to do, but sometimes people use yogurt. But it says this is only if it's been contaminated with other things and not meat. So however, if it's been touched by meat, fish, or eggs, these sort of things, it must be purified by heating it over fire. So the same as was said in the previous sloka about bell metal pots. Okay. So then the Brahma Purana continues on in text 67. If one wants to purify pots that have been used by a woman who has just delivered a baby, which we talked about before, that has been touched by a dead body, or somehow or other you use the pot to do something in a funeral, or it touched a dead body somehow, or touched by stool or urine, or by a woman who is in her menstrual period, he must heat them for as long as he can hold them. As long as he can hold them. So it's not just a matter of passing this through a flame. You have to hold the pot, and when the pot gets very hot, too hot to hold, then you have to take it off, right? And that will purify it. It's a bit drastic here, but anyway, these are very heavy contaminations, so there's a drastic way of purifying the pot after it's been contaminated. Continuing on, the sage Devala has advised in Sutra 60, sloka 68 to 69, pots made of iron, as well as those of gold and silver, can be purified by rubbing them with ashes and cow dung. If they're very contaminated, they can be heated to be purified. Pots made of stone can be purified by heating them, rubbing them with some cleansing agent, or washing them with water. Wooden pots can be purified by means of clay, cow dung, and water. Clay pots can be purified by heating them. Okay, so one thing I want to say about here, wooden pots. Why would you have a wooden pot? You have a wooden pot or a wooden bowl. It might be applicable for a sadhu or for a person who's a sannyasi. They usually use wooden items, like wooden shoes or wooden things. So that's possible. And clay pots, normally if we've got unfired clay, we can fire the clay. But, clay pots in general, we don't usually purify clay pots. We simply discard them or destroy them. Especially in India, when they have these unfired clay pots, they're just discarded and they're only used one time. But if it's a clay pot that's been fired and glazed or whatever, it can be used more than one time, but it needs to be heated to purify it if it's contaminated. So continuing on to text 70, Manu says, if pots are contaminated by wine, urine, stool, phlegm, pus, mucus, or saliva, they cannot be purified, even by being heated on fire. Now we have where Manu disagrees with something that we set up here, because we do have a couple of slokas back here. We have the idea from Brahma Purana, which says that if something is contaminated by stool and urine, it can be purified. Whereas down here, Manu says no. It says stool and urine or wine, right? That was mentioned before that it can be purified, but here Manu says no. So these are differing opinions. So you can see Manu has a stricter standard. And in this case, I would suggest maybe the stricter standard is probably a good idea, right? For these things like wine, stool, urine, phlegm, pus, mucus, and saliva, right? So continuing on, text 71 says, a very old sage called Shatatapa says, if only one pot is contaminated among many pots that have been kept together, by purifying only the contaminated pot, all the other pots are automatically purified. That's an interesting shortcut. So now we've finished talking about the different pots, purifying the pots. We're going to talk about how to purify cloth that we might use in the service of the deity. Text 72 to 73, coming again from this author Shankar, it says, dirty cotton cloth should be purified by washing it with soap and water. So I wonder what the word for soap is in here. I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure. We'd have to check that out. After washing it, it should be dried in the sun or in the fresh air before being used. Wool, silk, linen, shaggy cloth, and cloth from the sheep's hair. Cloth from a sheep's hair normally is wool, so I'm not sure what the difference is here, as well as one's skin, should be purified simply by putting them in the sun, or in some cases, sprinkling them with water. Okay, so there are some things which some cloths which we can use which are not. We don't have to actually wash them with soap and water. We can simply immerse them in water, or we can put them in the sun and sprinkle some water on them. Okay, to purify them. Continuing on, verses 74 to 76. In the above-mentioned cloths, if the above-mentioned cloths are touched by contaminated objects, they should be purified by using white mustard seeds. So you sprinkle white mustard seeds on them. A husk of rice paddy can be sprinkled on them. And the juice abstracted from some kind of fruit or bark. Some type of fruit or bark juice. We're not exactly sure what kind of fruit that is. It could be like amalaki fruit, which is a very, very astringent fruit. Amalaki is the Chinese, it's a Indian gooseberry. Cloth made of cotton, a pillow, a cloth that is embroidered with gold or silver can be put in the sun for some time and then rubbed with one's hands to make it purified. Thereafter, one can sprinkle some water on it, and if such cloth is very contaminated or dirty, it should be purified by the process that is described above. Continuing on with text 77, Shatapa, again, that was that old sage, an old person of the name Shatatapa. If cloth dyed by kusumba, kumkuma, or lac are touched by a dog eater, it should be purified by rinsing it with water. Okay. Continue on with text 78 from Yamaraj. Here's a statement: like the skin of a spotted deer should be purified by contact with fresh air. A chamara, which is a whisk fan made of yak's tail whisk, should be purified by clay and water. A conch shell and articles made of ivory should be purified by cow thura. Okay. And linen cloth should be purified by using white mustard seeds. Text 79, again, Shankar says, things made of ivory and horn should be purified by using white mustard seeds. Containers made of a coconut shell, right, should be purified by the tail of a cow. Tail of a cow means that they make a special brush of the tail of a cow. There's also another type of brush that they make with the bristles of a pig. That's called Vraha Keshari. Sometimes it's used for brushing down the deity. Specifically, I think by Madhvas, maybe not by Sri Vaishnavas, but we'll see. White mustard seeds can also be used to purify things made of bones. Now, it's not that we use bones so much, but conch shell, of course, is the bone of an animal, but it's considered to be pure. There might be some other exceptions to the idea that bones are impure. And so if they need to be cleaned, they need to be cleaned here, stated by white mustard seeds. Text 80, Yamaraj says, thick juice of some particular trees, jaggery, which means brown sugar, that brown country sugar, salt, kusumba, not exactly sure what that is, flowers, wool, and cotton can be purified by sprinkling water on them. And Manu says in text 81 to 83, a large quantity of rice paddy and cloth should be purified by means of sprinkling water. A small quantity should be soaked in water. So rice paddy, large quantity of rice paddy and cloth should be purified by means of sprinkling water. Okay. And a small quantity should be soaked in water. Leather goods. So if you have any leather goods, not sure why you would have leather goods, but in case you do have leather goods, like I'm guessing a leather mridangam or some other leather thing, even like shoes, I guess, as well as things made of bamboo and cane should be purified in the same way as cloth, which has been described previously. Purification of vegetables, roots, and fruit, right, should be done in the same way as rice paddy. Grass, wood, and straw become purified by sprinkling water on them. One's house is purified by sweeping and mopping, and clay pots are purified by heating them on a fire. Continuing on to text 84, it said, one should continue to use water and clay for purifying something that has been touched by an impure object until the stain and the smell of the impurity is completely vanished. Text 85, Brihaspati says, by washing with water, things made of bamboo and leather become purified. Cloth should also be purified by washing with water. However, if such things are extremely contaminated, the affected part should be cut off so that the purity can be maintained. So if we have something like a bamboo and it becomes contaminated, one end of it becomes contaminated, we can cut it off. Or a piece of leather, something made of leather, we can cut off that piece which is contaminated. If it's extremely contaminated, it can't be purified by washing it with water. The affected part can be cut off to maintain the purity of the other part. I don't know how leather is pure, but anyway, relatively pure, right, let's say. And bamboo, of course, bamboo is pure. So, text 86, Vishnu, Sri Vishnu says, if clay, leaves, grass, or wood are touched by a dog, by bone, by a dog eater or a crow, they should be purified by sunlight, moonlight, or air. And so Sage Bodhayana says in text 87, sitting places or asanas, beds, vehicles, boats, roads, grass, and houses made of bricks and cement are purified by sunlight and air. Continuing on, we want to know how to purify grains. How to purify grains. Now, all of this is leading up to using these things in the worship of the Lord. So when we go out and we collect things for the worship of the Lord, which is part of Upadana, the second part after Abhigamana before Ija or worship, then we have to take into consideration these things, whether something is pure or whether it's not pure. And if it's not pure, we have to purify it. So that's the context of all of this. So Dhanyadinam samskara, the process of purifying grains. Bodhayana again says, rice paddy, spinach, and other vegetables, roots, and fruit should be purified by sprinkling water on them and by removing the contaminated portion or by peeling the skin. Right. So even if there's a contaminated portion of the fruit, the root, the vegetable, the spinach, the rice, we can take it out. Or we can just simply peel the skin of these different fruits and things. Some fruits are automatically going to be very, very pure, even without, like a banana. If a banana, you have to peel the skin to get to the banana, like that. A coconut is a very pure fruit because when you break it, the water inside cracks. The water inside is going to wash the fruit, so it's self-washing fruit. The coconut. That's why it's so considered so auspicious, and it's called, we usually call it Sripalam, or the auspicious fruit, coconut. Shankar again says in text 89, ghee, oil, and other milk products. So oil, ghee, and other milk products should be purified by sprinkling water on their containers. Be careful sprinkling water on ghee, because if you get water in ghee, when you heat it up, it's going to splatter. Because it's not possible to sprinkle water on these things directly, because if you do, they become difficult to use. It is recommended that one sprinkle water on the containers. Closed containers of such things can be submerged in water for purification, and vegetables, fruits, and roots should be purified by washing them. And especially if there's any dirt left on them, you can scrub the dirt off, cut off the dirty parts. Text 1991 coming from Brahma Purana. If the thing to be purified is light, yet large in quantity, it should be dipped into water, along with its container. A contaminated portion of rice paddy, unhusked rice, other grains, vegetables, and fruit should be removed, and then the rest should be rinsed in water for purification. Again, Brihaspati says in text 92 to 94, ghee and oil should be purified by heating them on a fire. Milk products should be purified by sprinkling water on their containers. By removing the contaminated portion, yogurt and condensed milk can be purified. If ghee is solid, then the same procedure can be applied, and if it is liquid, it can be purified by washing the entire container with water. If the container is contaminated, it can be purified simply by replacing it. Ghee sweet rice, milk, sugarcane juice, jaggery, means country sugar, buttermilk, and honey does not become impure even if touched by a Shudra or kept in a Shudra's pot. Let's repeat that. Ghee, sweet rice, milk, sugarcane juice, jaggery, buttermilk, and honey do not become impure even if they're touched by a Shudra or kept in a Shudra's pot. So these things are considered to be naturally pure things. Texts 95 and 96 from Manu. Again, Manu Smriti is quoted here. If something has been held in if something that is held in one's hand becomes contaminated, one must wash both the thing and one's hand to become purified. Vaishnavas should refer to the Smriti literature to learn more about the rules and regulations with regards to purifying other things. Out of fear of increasing the volume of this book, we abstain from elaborating any further on this subject. Okay, so he's afraid of making it a huge book, but because there's a lot that can be said about purifying different elements and different things, and therefore you can look in the Smriti literature, you can look in the Puranas, you can look in the other Shastras to find out more details. So, changing the subject a little bit, after we get all these other ingredients ready to worship the Lord, right? We also want to get flowers and tulsi. So later on in Hari Bhakti Vilas, in the 7th Vilas, there's going to be a whole Vilas about flowers. Flowers are very important in the worship of the Lord, and therefore we're going to explain all about different types of flowers and etc. But here, since we're just beginning to start the worship of the Lord, we are just going to give a very short section about how to obtain flowers and tulsi for the Lord. So picking tulsi and flowers for the Lord's worship. Verse 97. Thereafter, the devotee should first offer his obeisances to Lord Vishnu and then take his permission before picking tulsi leaves and suitable flowers. So here it's very clearly stated, Pranamyata Mahavishnu, right? And then take permission from the Vaishnavas, right, to pick tulsi and flowers, right? In the Harita Samhita, it is stated in text 98 here, it says, if a Brahmin picks flowers while wearing wet clothes after bathing, the demigods do not accept them. The devatas do not accept them. So devatas, the word devatas used here, we can include Lord Vishnu in the devatas. So in that sense that he will not like people to do that. Rather, these flowers are burnt to ashes like wood. Okay, so they're not considered good to offer in worship. Text 99, the procedure applies only, this procedure applies only to noon bath. We're going to continue on here. Noon bath. So this comes from the Padma Purana, Vaishaka Mahatmyam, the glories of what you're supposed to do in the month of Vaishaka. And it has to do with Madhyanika Snanam, which is noon bath. Before doing noon Sandhyavandanam, one should perform the bath in the noon. So normally noon bath is not performed by brahmacharis. It's performed by grihastas, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis. So we were discussed before about the different numbers of baths, and brahmacharis can just use one bath, grihastas 2 baths, which means the morning and the noon. The brahmacharis is the morning only. Then vanaprasthas and sannyasis can do 3 and 4 baths like that a day. So here we're talking about the noon bath. So picking tulsi leaves for offering to the Supreme Lord, or for offering as oblations to the forefathers without bathing, right? Without first bathing, is completely useless. However, these tulsi leaves can be purified by putting them in panchagavya, panchagavya is the 5 products of the cow: milk, yogurt, ghee, cow urine, and cow dung, which is made in a certain proportion. And usually you just sprinkle it on things to purify those things. So here we're talking about Tulsi, getting Tulsi. Does it mention flowers? Not necessarily, just Tulsi, like that. That we should take bath before we pick Tulsi leaves. Okay, that makes sense. Text 100 talks about other opinions, right? So the process of Griha Shnana Vidhi, right? So now we're talking about, it seems like in this section we're talking about taking bath at noon, or taking the noon bath. Now, it's very interesting. So normally, these anikams, these different sections on Vaishnava behavior, daily behavior, what they'll do is you get up in the morning and you do everything. You do here in Hari Bhakti Vilasa, you went to the Lord's temple and you woke up the Lord and you did the Mangal Arati and then you took bath. But or either you took bath before sunrise or after sunrise, but in the morning you took a morning bath. Then after the morning bath, you did the Sandhya Vandana. There's many prayers to be chanted and things like that. You did the Vedic Sandhya Vandana, the Tantric Sandhya Vandana, the Puranic, Pancharatric Sandhya Vandana. And then afterwards you're going to get things together for the worship of the Lord. But then the normal situation is you take another bath, right? You take another bath, you do noon Sandhya Vandanam, and then you perform the worship of the Lord. And then after the worship of the Lord is finished, then you take your meal, your first meal for the day, which is sort of like, it might be earlier than noon, but it might be just around noon or before noon. In South India, it's normally around 10:30. And people are doing their second Sandhya Vandana before that, and they're doing their puja before that. So this is the way it's described. So that means Sandhya Vandana may not exactly be at noon. So let's continue on picking. So in text 100, there's another opinion, and we're going to talk about Griha Shnana Vidhi. So before we did the morning, the Prataha Shnanam, the morning bath should be taken at the river or taken at the pond or taken by pulling water from the well or something like that. But here we're talking about in the house, taking a bath at the house. So in your own house, right, the method of taking bath is after bathing at home, one should wash the hands and feet, practice breathing exercises and nyasas, and then meditate upon Srihari. So the system of taking bath at home is a little bit different from the system of taking bath when you're at a holy tirtha or a holy place like that. But here it's mentioning different parts of it. Washing the hands and feet, practicing breathing exercises or pranayamaha, nyasas, touching different parts of the body, and meditating upon the Lord, which is what happens after the bath. Right? So this is talking more about the noon bath. So, text 101. Thereafter, intelligent devotees should meditate on the holy rivers such as the Ganges and then invoke the holy water into a pot that is filled with water and tulsi leaves. So, you're going to take a bath, you're going to get a pot full of water and tulsi leaves, you're going to invoke the holy rivers, you're at home, you're going to do this bath, and then it gives you the mantra for that. So we're all very familiar with this mantra. Text 102, the Avahana mantra. Avahana means calling or invoking the holy rivers by this mantra. So we all know this mantra. Gange cha yamuni chaiva, Godavari Saraswati, Narmade Sindhu Kaveri, Jalismin Sanidim Kuru. O Ganges, O Yamuna, O Godavari, O Saraswati, O Narmada, O Sindhu, O Kaveri, please manifest yourself within this water, in this pot. And it specifically says here, Tulsi Mishriter Jalehi, water mixed with Tulsi leaves. So yes, taking bath with water mixed with Tulsi leaves. Text 103. Otherwise, one may invoke the Ganges, which is the embodiment of all sacred rivers, into the water pot by chanting her 12 names. So this is an alternate prayer, which you could also say, you could say both prayers if you want. We're usually knowing this prayer, Ganga Chaya Muni Chava, but there's another one which is the 12 names of the Ganges. So it goes like this. Nalini Nandini Sita, Malini cha Mahapaga, Vishnu Padargya Sambhuta, Ganga Tripatagamini, Bhagarati Bhogavati, Jhanavi, Tridasheshwari. These are the 12 names of the Ganges. The 12 names of the Ganges are Nalini, Nandini, Sita, Malini, Mahapaga, Vishnu Padargya Sambhuta, Ganga, Tripadagamini, with Tripadagamini. It's got Tripadagamini. Let's see. Okay. Might be. Bhagirati, Bhogavati, Jhanavi, Tridasheshwari. Okay. Then from the glories of the month of Vaishak in the Padma Purana, it says in text 105 to 107, "Oh, Mother Ganges." So it seems like it's all sorts of prayers here. Mother Ganges, you are celebrated in the heavenly planets as Nandini, Nalini, Daksha, Prithvi, Vihaga, Vishwanatha, Shiva, Amrita, Vidyadari, Mahadevi, Loka Prasadani, Shamavati, Janavi, Shanta, and Shanti Pradayini. One should perform Achamana and then meditate on his spiritual master and beg his permission for invoking you. Right? So after you invoke the holy rivers, or before you invoke the holy rivers, you should say Achamana and then meditate on the spiritual master and beg his permission to invoke you. At this time, one should think of how the sacred river Ganges is emanating from the lotus feet of Krishna and directly falling on his head. So you have to think about the Ganges coming and falling on your head while you're taking the bath. Text 108 to 114, in the Narada Pancharatra, these statements are found. One should meditate on Lord Vasudeva, who is situated within one's heart, who is the form of one's worshipable mantra, whose eyes are just like blooming lotus flowers, and who is as brilliant as countless suns. He has 4 arms, in which he holds conch, disc, club, and lotus. Lord Vasudeva here. He is dressed in yellow garments. His complexion is blackish, and his face appears peaceful and most pleasing. While looking into his eyes, it appears that he is ready to award a benediction. His limbs are smeared with sandalwood paste, and he wears an enchanting smile upon his face. His ears are adorned with fish-shaped jeweled earrings. He is decorated with a garland of forest flowers. Great sages such as Narada are constantly engaged in worshipping him. He is decorated with armlets and bracelets. His golden crown shines brightly. His entire body is supremely attractive, and it is decorated with transcendental ornaments. One should meditate upon how the Ganges, which emanated from the Lord's lotus feet, falls directly on one's head and enters within his body. As a result, his entire body is being purified. If an irritated person meditates on the Supreme Lord in this way, within a short while, he will become as pure as crystal. It is said that this process of Shnanam or bath is better than all the other processes of bathing. While bathing, one should remember Lord Narayana and glorify him. So, text 115. Now we can see why this 4th Vilasa is also about bathing. It's more specifically about the bathing that happens before the noon Gayatri, before doing the noon bath. So in the Kurma Purana, it says Sri Narayana is the source of all water, and as such, he is said to reside within water. In fact, Nara means another name for Nara is water. Another meaning for Nara is water. Therefore, it is the duty of all learned persons to remember him at the time of bathing. Text 116. Even if one is healthy, even if you're healthy, he can bathe in warm water after massaging his body with amalaki, which is that gooseberry, again, a astringent gooseberry, or sesame oil, except on prohibited days. So there are certain days when you take amalaki bath or mix the amalaki in the water, or also use sesame oil to massage the body before you wash it with the amalaki water. Okay. And then, but there are prohibited days, right? And it can be warm water. It should be warm water for washing off the oil and using with the amalaki. It should be warm water. So now it's talking about some of the rules of warm water bath. Warm water bath is usually we have warm water bath at the house, because in the house we can have a fire and we can heat up the water. So that usually means the noon bath, because the morning bath, when we go out to the river or we go to the pond, right, to do the ritual bath, we can't heat that water up. So in the opinion of Shatrimsat, don't know who that is exactly, he says in text 117, by nature, water is pure. But it becomes especially pure when it is heated on a fire. This is why saintly persons glorify bathing in warm water. Except there are certain rituals and certain vrats and certain festivals and certain pujas where you have to take bath in cold water, or not heated water, let's say. It doesn't have to be extremely cold, but it can be just room temperature. Yamaraj also says in text 1/18, water is always pure. When it is heated by fire, it becomes more pure. You should know that for certain that warm water is the most pure. Okay. So again, this author Shankar says in text 119, it is to be understood that when a person bathes in water that was heated by fire or by sunshine, right? So it doesn't have to be so hot, but at least it's heated by the sun. His body becomes highly purified because he does not get the result, the pious result, one ordinarily attains by bathing. But he does not get the pious result one ordinarily gets by bathing. Okay, so there are these pious results that you get by taking the morning bath. And the morning bath is in water which is not heated artificially. But if we heat the water with fire or with sunshine, like that, we get highly purified, but there are certain pious results that we don't get. So when we're doing a particular vrat that is mentioned in the Shastras, sometimes it'll be mentioned that you should take regular bath, meaning cold water bath. Otherwise, normal bath we can take using hot water or warm water. Text 120, the above statement is applicable only with regards to fruitive activities and occasional activities. Occasional activities means naimitika kriyas, things that we don't do every day, but we do on specific occasions. There are certain festivals and vrats and different things that we're following, and that statement above is applicable for that. Or if we're doing something for the fruit, to get some certain fruit, some fruitive activities, like we want to get wealthy, or we want to get a son, or different things that we want. Therefore, Garga Muni has said, right, bathing for the purpose of fulfilling one's ambitions, as well as an occasional bath, right, should be done in cool water. There are no special rules for taking one's daily bath. According to one's taste, one may either use cold water or warm water for bathing. Okay? But specifically, if you're doing it as part of some ritual, it's normally supposed to be cold water. Now we're going to talk about specific days when it's forbidden to take bath in warm water. So Yamaraj says in text 121, on the birthday of one's son, on a day when the sun enters a new zodiac sign, which is a Sankranti, on the days of lunar and solar eclipse, right? So Surya Grahana or Chandra Grahana, right? Or if the warm water has been touched by an untouchable person, one must avoid bathing in warm water, right? So what exactly an untouchable person is, right? is not exactly told here, but it would have to do with something, probably to do with something of their caste or the fact that they're dirty, contaminated in some way. So these are days when you shouldn't take warm water bath. Okay, so then Manu says in his Manusmriti, right, in text 122, there's no doubt that a person who bathes in warm water on a full moon day or on a new moon day is considered to be as sinful as the killer of a cow. So you're not supposed to bathe in hot water on a full moon day or a new moon day, because there are certain rituals which have to be performed, which you should not take warm water bath. Continuing on, right? It's going to be talking about taking water with bath, taking bath with water which is mixed with that amalaki, that astringent juice of the Indian gooseberry, right? Amalaka fruit. In this regard, Sri Markandeya has said, amalaki is very dear to Lord Vishnu. Therefore, those who desire wealth should bathe in water mixed with amalaki, especially on Ekadasi. One should avoid applying oil to his body, wearing blue clothes, bathing in water mixed with amalaki, and quarreling with others on the 7th day of the waning moon. Okay, so that's very specific. On that Saptami in the Krishna Paksha, the waning moon, right, of every fortnight, you must avoid applying oil to your body, wearing blue clothes, bathing with water mixed with amalaki, or quarreling with others. So, text 125, Sage Brigu says, it's prohibited to bathe in water mixed with amalaki on the new moon day. So above it was stated, right? Above it was stated, no doubt. Oh, that was warm water. Okay, so warm water you can also use on the new moon day, which means the Amavasya. Prohibited. Brigu says it's prohibited to bathe in water mixed with amalaki on the new moon day. That's the Amavasya, as well as on the 6th, 7th, 9th, and 13 days of the waning moon. That's the Shasti, Saptami, Navami, and Triodasies of the Krishna Paksha. It is also prohibited to bathe on the days when the sun enters the new zodiac, Sankrantis, or on Sundays. And the last verse that we're going to do today, text 126, Yajnavalkya, Sage Yajnavalkya says, by bathing with water mixed with amalaki on the new moon day, as well as on the 7th and the 9th days of the waxing moon. So on the Amavasya, or on the Saptami and Navami of the Krishna Paksha, a person loses his strength, duration of life, wealth, and capacity to beget children.
What did it say about begetting children?
It said that it's verse 126 says that by bathing with water mixed with amalaki on the Amavasya, the Saptami, the Navami of the Krishna Paksha, or the 7th or 9th days of the waning moon, or a person loses his strength, duration of life, wealth, and capacity to beget children.
Whoa.
That is verse 4, 126 of Hari Bhakti Vilasa.
Wow.
So any questions about this? Because we're talking about the noon bath, right? This bath is not, the morning bath is taken as a and you get a lot of pious credits for taking the morning bath, but the noon bath is more about, really getting clean. So maybe you do a more ritualistic bath in the morning, and then you do a more, cleansing bath when you have more time towards noon. But it's all still normally done before the actual worship of the Lord.